Well, it was actually a very interesting trip. He came, the senator met with a total of about 18 commanders from the Free Syria Army under the supreme command of General Idris. He had 2 meetings in Gaziantep. The first meeting included 10 commanders. The second meeting was 4, and the third meeting, which was inside Syrian territory, had 5 commanders, all of which were attended by General Idris, the supreme commander of the Free Syria Army.
So how many hours was Senator McCain inside Syria proper?
About an hour.
About 1 hour. Was there ever any danger to the senator?
No, actually not at all. And I think it's testament to the Free Syria Army, which with very limited weapons and capabilities has been able to secure and liberate large swaths of areas in the north. The senator did not go too far deep into Syria. It was less than 1 kilometer in. And the meeting, again, took about 45 minutes to an hour. And then the Free Syria Army was incredibly cooperative. They didn't even stop the convoy. They let us come up right to the door for the room where the meeting took place, and it was incredibly productive.
What was the senator's message to the Free Syrian Army?
The senator, first of all, I think wanted to assure the Syrian people and the Free Syria Army that the people of the United States, in general, support their strive for freedom, support their revolution, which for 8 months was completely peaceful, and they were forced into taking up arms to defend against the Assad regime's massacres that were occurring against innocent people. He also discussed with them a few major issues. One was his concern about the increasing numbers of Hezbollah fighters that have been entering Syria and taking part in aiding Assad in oppressing his people. Also, the Revolutionary Guard from Iran that are also operating and taking part in combat operations inside of Syria. He also discussed briefly the use of chemical weapons, as well as what were the needs of the Free Syria Army. He also discussed the aspect of extremism that may have sort of popped up in certain parts of Syria, and to what extent that was, and in what ways we could take to be able to marginalize any extremist group that may have entered due to the lack of international intervention or aid.
What was the main message to Senator McCain from the Free Syrian Army, the rebels who are opposed to the regime of the President Bashar al-Assad?
The Free Syria Army really wanted to, first of all, we're incredibly appreciative. Some of these commanders came from places as far away as Homs, Qusair, Aleppo, Idlib province, and other provinces all over Syria just to meet the senator. And, we were helping coordinate them coming out. And what they wanted to say is, first of all, that thank you very much for taking the time and for coming to see them. One major thing that they realize is that many in the West, in the United States specifically, are afraid to arm the rebels because they don't know who they are, or they're afraid that the weapons would fall in the wrong hands. And their message was that they are confident that if the weapons are given to General Idris in a Supreme Military Council, that it would not fall in the wrong hand. They also assured him that even serial numbers for weapons would be written down and personal guarantees that such weapons would be returned once Assad is deposed. But also that if the United States does not act and take greater leadership in supporting the rebels in a more serious manner, that the threats of increased extremism in the country will be realized, and that the disintegration of Syrian institutions in the country as we know it, and the spillover all over the region would greatly increase. So their main message was that we are desperate for ammunition, we are desperate for weapons through a hierarchy of a Free Syria Army that is willing to be under civilian command, that is merely defending their people and wanting to ensure that their greatest fear more than anybody else is extremism, and that they want to fight against Hezbollah, Iran, and all these other countries that are intervening. And finally, they wanted to mention that the president had mentioned the red line on different issues, including the chemical weapons, and they had provided, they said, to the State Department previously evidence of the use of chemical weapons. And yet when these red lines are placed, it is more of a green light for Bashar al-Assad to continue to ferociously attack his people. And that was the main message, to go back to the United States, to go back to Congress and ask for true help.
Muaz Mustafa, hold on for a minute, because there's a developing story that's just coming in. I want to get your quick reaction. Hold on for 1 second. now agreed to lift its embargo on arming the Syrian rebels. Diplomats in The Hague, they say there's no immediate decision by European governments for any delivery of weapons to the rebels. Other sanctions, they say, remain in place. Muaz Mustafa, your quick reaction to the EU decision.
We really welcome this decision. This is something that I believe the French and the British, and meetings with the French Ambassador Axelier and the British Ambassador Envoy to Syria, John Wilkes, they have both been adamant about pushing the European Union to lift this arms embargo. Now, as you say, this is not a decision to arm the Free Syria Army, but it is a very welcome development, just as the visit of Senator McCain is a very welcome development. And we hope that this will result in aiding in ammunition and weapons for the Free Syria Army to be able to defend Assad's regime before it's too late, before we lose the country.
Muaz Mustafa from the Syrian Emergency Task Force. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll stay in close touch with you.
Thank you, sir.
Up next, are there similarities between the bloody attack on a British soldier in London and the Boston